computer. Cool. Right, we are now recording. Okay, so welcome back to the Nudge Business Podcast. My name is Rob Nugent, and I'm here today with Nick Bishop. Nick is a published author, a business coach, athletics coach, and has become a friend of mine over the past decade or so when we met at a business for breakfast event at a hotel that I cannot remember the name of, Nick, in Cheadle. And I reckon
the Village Hotel, Rob. It would have been the Village Hotel. I'll tell you why. It was business for breakfast with Tony
Hayes.
Tony Hayes. He's the man. He was the man. He has a lot to answer for.
There's a lot to answer for, and there's an ongoing message with the sort of the interviews and the networking that I do of how important it is to meet somebody once and stay in touch. And I believe that it's easier now than ever to do that via social media and things like this. Nick has supported my my lockdown work from home heroes event, which is every Friday morning at 9:30.
And if I can be if I can just give a plug, I think it's fantastic. It's relaxed, it's informal, and don't you think that's when you perform your best? When we need pressure to make us up. Well, we need a certain degree of stress to perform, but that relaxed environment that you provide, Rob, I think the rest is magic.
And on the quiet, a little bit of business is happening as well.
100%. I passed business on and received some.
It's great to be able to bring people together in this weird world, which a year on, we now know is not a temporary thing. So I now work from home permanently. And what I'm really interested to speak to you about, Nick, once we get into the podcast, is you have worked from home for a considerable period of time anyway.
Well, so 16 years, but the only thing when I qualify that, on the whole, if I'm at home, I'm not earning money. It depends how you quantify earning money, because on the whole, most of my money is earned when I'm on site with people. But of course, it does mean that all the preparation work, all the administration work, all the developing business threads. Yes, and I do get paid for some homework, of course, as well. I can't say I don't, but it's getting out there too, isn't it?
So you are based at home?
Correct.
B-A-H. Okay, so what I want to do is, obviously we've been through where we met, and we stayed, and we have met probably not even once every 12 months, probably every couple of years, just caught up for a Costa. I know you became a customer of my utility business, and that's ongoing, so I really appreciate that.
Do you know what, Rob? It's one of those ones where with the utility warehouse, I thought I'd better do something here, better keep this kind of quiet. But how glad I am, because I've saved a load.
There you go. So we've done staying in touch. So Nick, over to you. Will you just give us so that the listeners who don't know you know where to find you, know where to read some of your books, but also maybe a potted history of Nick Bishop Solutions? And
absolutely. It all started in 2005, because when I finished working for HBOS, Halifax Bank of Scotland, I was managing a team of about 250 people, turning over about £1 billion a year of income. And with the merger between Halifax Bank of Scotland, they took out my level of management. I was offered other jobs, but I didn't fancy any, so I took a package and negotiated a package. And that's when I thought, I'm going to work for myself, because what I enjoy doing most of all. So my strapline is People Performance Solutions. Is helping people to be the best version of themselves, the teams they work with, obviously then the teams as well. And it gave me that chance to do that. And it's just, I love what I do. I'm passionate about what I do. So my website is www.nickbishopsolutions.co.uk. And I help people and their teams to be the best version of themselves. It's as simple as that.
Okay, and I will put all your details in the show notes for the podcast. And you do as well, because you do deal with some reasonable size clients, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with Argos, Timpsons. I did 100 days work with the NHS, a leadership program, Macmillan, Pets at Home, HMRC, and a 2-year project in Botswana as well when I was working with the government. I went out about 20 times over 2 years to help to develop the business process outsourcing in Botswana. It's cash rich, but most of their money comes from diamonds, some engineering, light engineering, but they want to become more of a white collar employee centric city. And Gaborone, the capital, has about 400,000 people and a real tight-knit business community. Deloitte, Touche Ross, all the banks in the center there. So what a chance to try to make a difference to a country, because I was working with the Minister of Education, had access to the government enclave, etc., and to try to make a difference to a whole country almost.
We haven't put this in our preparation bit, Nick, but didn't that come about because you just said yes to what sounded like a little...
It's a great example, Rob. I was doing a little bit of business with a guy who's in Nottingham, and he phoned me up once and he said to me, and Nick, I've had this right crank on the phone. He says that Botswana is a big hotspot in global economy. But this guy wants to meet me at the Cresta Court in Altrincham. I can't be asked going. Do you want to go? So Cresta Court, Altringham's half an hour's drive for me. Meet this guy for coffee. He'd come back from a conference in Cape Town in South Africa. Botswana had got a real big push. It was the next big gig, etc., etc. He thought there was mileage. He knew what I did. He knew what this colleague of mine, Jason in Nottingham, did. Jason then met up. We went out to Botswana twice. We got this contract to develop, working with the government out of the business school there, business skills for the outsourced processed contact center world in Botswana. And again, it was just that chance opportunity. Hey?
That's when you stopped coming to our meetings.
It was because the trouble I had around that time, I just picked up 100 days work with the NHS, working at their head office in London, in Nottingham, in Newcastle, in wherever, 4 days a month. 1 week a month I'm flying out to Botswana, so I could just never commit to going to meetings. And it wasn't so much not fair on me. It wasn't my issue, but it wouldn't be fair on the rest of the group to take up what is deemed to be a seat, isn't it, really, if that's your speciality?
I guess
training, consultancy, etc.
Fantastic. Nick, how have you dealt with, I know we've just got into the fact that you are based at home, and I know you love meeting people and going, getting really getting your feet under the table with the customers and the corporates that you deal with. So how have you dealt with the last 12 months with not only with everything being at home pretty much until very recently?
As well as being Nick Bishop and Nick Bishop Solutions, I'm also a director of a business called Solution Focused, where we have an office between Stoke and Stafford. And we employ about 5 people there, so it's a little bit different. But when lockdown hit in March of last year, there was a vacant office right next door to ours in the building we have. And we asked the landlord if we could use it. And what we actually did there, we built a studio, videos, cameras, light, sound, and we were able to video live training, and we called it LID, Live and Interactive Development, where we could beam it globally. Now, our biggest client at Solution Focus is Centrica, and we've probably done about 150 days work with them. But we carried on for the 12 months throughout lockdown. And what it meant, we could go to a wider audience within the business, but not for a full day, probably for an hour and a half session at a time. They didn't have to travel, and it kept our business with them. We won more business with them, but also from other clients, because it's almost like having a gold, silver, bronze package, isn't it? Your gold package might be, a bespoke training program created bespoke for you on site with these end deliverables. Whereas we can also do a more hybrid version, which is we can beam it out from a studio. You can just sit at your laptop wherever you are at home and be part of the training. And then for myself personally, I threw myself into doing more work in the athletics community, writing interventions for UK athletics all around the psychological aspect of sport. Finished a book that's due out fairly soon. What I did was I realized over the years I'd written about 200 blogs. I've written them into one complete book. So I kept myself busy. Yes, probably some of my income dropped, but not to the extent where it was a major issue. I did things I'd wanted to do. And I think you never want to say it's been a decent period of 12 months for you in a global pandemic, but it's what you make it yourself ultimately, guess that, Rob, isn't it? How you tackle that situation.
Yeah, it's funny. Obviously, I had my little lockdown project, which was doing some of the coaching stuff I've been talking about on my little live videos and things. And I think, there was that a time to pause and reflect and ask, why am I here? What am I doing? And if it was to give back in another area or to reskill in one or to flip your business a little bit. And, if your temporary fix of producing video content has turned into that isn't going to stop now, is it? I'm sure.
100%, absolutely. That's the whole point, Rob. It's you have options in life. You have choices in life. You can say, woe is my lot, what shall I do? Or you can do something about it. There's a pub just around the corner from where I live in Cheadle called the Church Inn. And obviously lockdown March, they had to shut. But I think it's probably about May time. Coffee shops were allowed to open. It might just be for takeouts. I can't quite remember. It might be to sit down even then. They produced in their beer garden, which kind of is on the side of a road, a pop-up coffee shop. Do you know what? They're doing about 200-300 covers a day, plus the bacon sandwiches, plus the croissants, plus the cakes. And again, I don't think that's going to go. Now, here's me, Mr. Bishop from Dragon's Den. I said that is not going to take off. That's not going to work. How wrong was I?
Yeah.
And I think it will stay that. I think it will stay. So whereas others just kind of shut up shop, they've done fantastically well out of it.
No, it's definitely a time for innovation. And like you said, we're not glossing over the terrible 12 months. We all know people affected by the health.
Oh, indeed. And that's why I feel a bit guilty saying, when people say, how has your lockdown been? Mm-hmm. If I wasn't working full time, I was out on my bike, cycling. We had a pretty good summer last year. So I made it work for me. And I think that's the key. Whatever your situation is, make it work for you.
There's some really interesting stuff on how the funding from government has helped with some respects, but it's not a podcast for now, but I'll speak to you. Nick, right, that's Nick Bishop solution focused. I know you've written the books, you deal heavily with UK athletics from a coaching perspective and involved in their information, their marketing and messages and that kind of stuff. I know you're a podcaster, you do something, and you are invited onto several podcasts, and I'm grateful that you've joined us on this. What I wanted to ask you next was the corporates that you're dealing with, how they've spent 12 months having to deal with the situation of sending people home, and then this next phase of who's coming back, who's not, whether it's this hybrid in inverted commas type stuff. But what are they saying about this new environment for their people that may help either people like me sat at home or people in a smaller business who have people dotted about and they're not quite sure how to manage this next phase, which will be, for me, semi-permanent or permanent.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because very few people have ever been allowed to work from home, apart from perhaps sometimes senior managers who said, I'm going to work from home on Friday and have a PA maybe, etc. And it's only taken a situation like this for companies to realize that people can work from home. Now, there's always been this fear that, well, I don't know if I trust them enough. Well, if you don't trust them enough, don't employ them. That's the first message, isn't it, really? And actually, we don't need to talk about minutiae of detail about micromanagement, because normally most people have a role. They're expected to do this by a certain time. Well, we know whether they're going to, how well they're doing against that, because we can touch base with them, we can talk to them. Are they delivering against what's expected? I think the challenge becomes a bit like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, about what people want out of life itself, because people want a sense of belonging. They want safety and security, near the top of the triangle, self-actualization when they actually start to achieve. But we know many people who have probably never met their fellow colleagues. And I include in that some leaders who've joined companies, picking up a team, they're employing them, and they've never met them. And all they're having is a Zoom call. And it's quite difficult, isn't it? We mentioned earlier when I last spoke to you, Rob, about what we call the coffee machine culture, which is where you're in a business, you go to the coffee machine, Frank meets Betty from a sales or marketing, and she says, that email you sent last week, it was really useful. I'd like to pick up on that. So rather than just the formal meetings, interactions, it's that kind of the element you get where you mix with people, you pick up on ideas. I hate to use the word brainstorm, it's so dated, etc. But you pick up on ideas, you throw a few ideas around. I think that is a challenge that people are going to have to face. I think companies have to speak more regularly to their people. I think they have to also look to give more feedback more regularly to help people to be involved in the business, to be part of a team. Now, do you feel part of a team when you haven't seen your colleagues for 6 months? Because when it's a fact that when unemployment grows, gangs in Glasgow, there's a survey done, gangs increased in number as unemployment grew because people have a fundamental desire to be part of a team, even if they don't like the job. So how do you create that team spirit when people aren't meeting each other? And then we have Tuckman's model, which is about the forming, storming, norming, performing stage, about how teams evolve and grow. And how challenging is that when the teams haven't met? And that's before we get into all the admin of home office working, having the right kit.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a big thing, isn't it? I think we've done all the health and safety of not working at the kitchen table. I mean, I'm on an office chair. I'm at the top of the stairs, and still.
Did you know what, Rob?
We're actually getting drawings built to build me an office at the side of the house somewhere to go.
Without a word of a lie, I was talking to someone. I was on a webinar the other week. It's quite a high-profile panel as a chairman of a FTSE 250 company, some HR director from, I think, this a big blue chip, and we were saying that some of the training programs they've been running, there were some people sat on a bed with their laptop working. Can you imagine that? It beggars belief. How can that happen? How are they being provided with the right tools?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we're adults. We have a reasonably, we have a house. We've got small children. All your kids have grown up, but you've got somewhere to work. You've got a garden to walk into.
Well, I've got a purpose-built office. I'm in my office, so I'm very lucky.
And I'm not going to get knifed if I walk around the corner. Now, if we are, let's say we've got a job and we are either younger or in a situation where we might have 3 or 4 housemates with a shared kitchen and a shared lounge. And so those 3 or 4 housemates are all potentially working from home. They've got no choice but to work from home.
My son lives in London, or we've got 3 sons. One's in Bristol, one's in London, and one's moved back in with us here in Cheadle. James in London, he's got a pretty good job in the city. And he's been working from home for nearly 12 months. And they've got a nice 5-bedroom apartment, 4 housemates, 5 altogether. All 5 have been working from home. Yeah. So imagine, so they've all got pretty decent careers in London. So they've got the Zoom calls, they've got the conference calls, probably even client calls.
Well, can you imagine how loud is even a kettle when you're on an important call in the background and it's somebody else has put that on, or
I know. So you can imagine perhaps one sat at the coffee table in the lounge. There might be 2 in the dining room, might be 1 in the kitchen, and one says, "I've got a Zoom call. I'll take it upstairs." The logistics of it.
Yeah, and I think that's it. From what I'm seeing, just through conversation and nothing more than that, is it's easy for us guys who have the space and the flexibility to talk about the upsides and not necessarily the downsides. If I was 22 starting out in life and I just got a job, I'd had to sit at my mum's house on a computer until they told me to go in the office. That would be interesting. And like you say, how do I get culturally involved in that? If the only time I go into the office is for they've got a bouncy castle on a Friday to engage all the staff. Well,
it's funny. It's funny you just said culturally involved, because I wrote an article for someone the other day about values, mission, and culture. And culture is part of the fabric of a company. What is our culture? Because a lot of companies have to, if they're serious about what they do, they'll have a series of values and they'll have a culture. And this is how we do things here. It's very difficult to have a culture when you sat at home in your kitchen, knowing what the culture is if you've never even been in the office.
Another word for you that I picked up from a Facebook conversation or a little Facebook group I'm on. A small business owner said, look, I'm going to be expanding my business. I'm looking for some new staff. What do you look for in people? And of course, people come on and reel all these qualities that people need to have. And we didn't really know what level of job that we was recruiting for. And so my basic take was, do I like you enough to work here and can you do the job? And his immediate response to me was, what about loyalty? And I suggested that was for him to earn, not for them to, they're not going to arrive with a lot of loyalty for somebody they don't know. And that would need to be earned by their business or in a larger company, the management. And how do you get loyalty over Zoom?
I know.
To get someone to do a little bit above and beyond maybe and help you out.
Absolutely, yeah. So I've been in situations where in business people are saying, I remember one situation where I was in retail financial services at the bank and we had a big backlog of perhaps new orders. So we had to get 40 people from team X to go and help team Y somewhere else. And it's quite hard to do that when you're working from home again, isn't it? It's that situation where does it stop the cross-fertilization or the mixing of skills in the business as it should do?
And I think we've had a brief chat, haven't we? There are people out there now who are setting themselves up to be professional home-based workers. I think the market, if you are a business, you can be employing the best people who maybe will be able to log in and out on some kind of, whether it's taking calls or doing emails or whatever, on a flexible basis or an agreed basis around the other stuff that's going on for them. And so certainly one guy who lives around the corner from me, he's an ex-director of a large business-to-business telecoms company, and he's working in a remote call center environment for a utility business and loves it because they're getting the best, someone with 20 years experience, and he's getting what he needs, which is an income with a good company on a flexible basis. That there is just absolutely key. And the turnover for the company is very, very low because they found the right people, not turning over staff all the time from a local area.
But that the whole employment cycle has changed, hasn't it? Because when I first started work in the late 70s in the insurance world, I went to night school, did insurance exams, etc. A good CV would be 10 years at one company, a couple of promotions maybe, then move on, 8 years there. Nowadays, a good CV is 2 years, 3 years max at one company, then move on. You get recruited to do a certain job, you grow into the role, deliver against the profile, and move on again. And also, people are doing jobs now that didn't even exist 5-10 years ago as well. There's so much more scope and opportunity for people to do things. And you hear about people that get interviewed and they say, well, I looked to buy this online and I couldn't find one, so I thought there's a shortage. So it's almost like you see on Dragon's Den, isn't it? Yeah. And so they set up their own business. Now, some might just remain cottage industries. So they turn over 50, 60 grand a year and their margin is X and they take home 35 grand to live off. That's just absolutely fine. It doesn't have to be a career where you're in the office or at home even 5 days a week doing what used to be deemed to be a profession. The world's moved on, it's changed.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I spend some time on LinkedIn and you see these polls, don't you? And they generally, how can I put this the right way? Generally old school of, do you think a 4-day working week is, or do you think full flexibility is this, that, or the other? And what those people are clearly saying that I've made it on a Monday to Friday, 8 till 6. I've done what I need to do. I didn't see my kids growing up. And all that kind of stuff, as though that needs to be the blueprint for
the macho culture.
Yeah, and I'm sat there going, well, I might not want to earn 100. You might want to earn 150k a year doing that. if that isn't my goal, I don't need to do that, and it doesn't need to be anybody else's goal. And how does that fit into a corporate organization that is, and to be able to say, look, I'm a really good professional person, but my goals are this, and this, and can we make work a fit where as long as I'm getting paid for the work that I do, or the productivity that I put in, does it have to be this 37 and a half hours with 20 days holiday, bank holiday? Or can it be a bit more of a project-based approach or not even hybrid working? I can be a really good employee on 3 days.
Well, also, I mean, we know that more companies are outsourcing things full stop anyway, aren't they? Yeah. So less of, they'll only have the core functions and then they'll outsource more as well anyway.
Yeah.
And I think people, because of COVID and lockdown, I think people have come to realize that money isn't everything. Yeah, so it goes back to the food on the table, roof over the head. Yeah, like the stereotypical Yorkshireman. Listen, lad, all you need is feed your family, put meal on table, and have roof over your head. But in its most simple terms, it's true, isn't it?
Which is actually where we're going with this, isn't it? Because obviously I'm doing lots of research and stuff into living a balanced life, because that's what I wanted, and I've gone and learned maybe there's some ways to do that. And I know you as such are on the sort of the business end of helping people perform better, or the businesses perform better. People
often forget how much they've got up here and how valuable some of that knowledge is.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like finding a new product, and we mentioned having a cottage industry, perhaps plant-based cosmetics, and it might take off, or it might just be a cottage industry. But actually, we all, in terms of selling a service, probably have a lot more knowledge of things than we realize. And there will always be people prepared to pay for something.
Yeah.
So it's just finding that route to market and niche, isn't it, Rob?
Absolutely. And something that I'm really keen for people to do, not only because I've built a business in part-time as well as the full-time job in the cars, which has now changed a little bit, that if you used to be in the car for 3 hours a day, you now have time to set up and run a little profit center, even if it's an extra 100 or 150 quid from selling.
But you know what? It's interesting you say that, Rob, because a lot of people say to me, I'd like to pick your brain. I'm thinking of working for myself and doing this. What advice would you give me? And I've always said to them, don't give up your day job until you've started your business, have started to get a few little contracts, because it's very hard to leave a well-paid job to become self-employed unless you've got a cushion of income, probably for 12 months even.
Yeah.
A pal of mine who he's lolling in Switzerland, he's a multimillionaire, and how he got his money was he used to be one of the top salesmen for the Eagle Star, no, Norwich Union, I think it was, 25, 30 years ago, or his top salesman of the year. He set up his own business, but didn't leave the company for 3 to 4 years. So he's working almost like 16-hour days, 9 to 5 at work, coming home, weekends, growing his own business. Once he got it to a certain level, he gave his notice in. So he was kind of really burning the candle at both ends until he knew he'd got a good, sustainable business. Now, that's a bit extreme and a bit excessive in terms of the work he put in. But you can start a small business without giving up your day job, no pun intended, the old day job, 9 to 5.
Yeah.
But you can do that, Rob. You've shown it.
And you don't have to hate your day job.
No, indeed. It might complement even. It might complement. Absolutely. Because if you're happy doing what you're doing in terms of this, the new business startup, it might give you a bit more hunger and desire to keep going and to keep that job secure until you can leave and really go with your own new job.
I mean, obviously, there's going to be a lot going about, isn't there? And I'm excited for people, whether it's, baking a few cakes on a Saturday morning or setting up a home-based franchise, or I know a guy in Scotland who had a whiskey business that wasn't affected by COVID necessarily. It's affected by the trade fight between the EU and bloody America. and he set up a cleaning company. And
but Rob, you see these. I mean, where I am, there's a couple of micro pubs which have opened by people who love real ale, used to brew their own, knew that real ale's come back in and it's no longer the guy with his hair down here and a big thick beard. I understand that the biggest take up in the real ale camera market is professional women in their 30s.
Right.
So it's quite on trend, you know, some of these fancy new beers. And people have set up micro breweries. And it's kind of, you know, who'd have thought that? So the old-fashioned traditional greenhalls and Whitbread and what have you is now hundreds of small microbreweries supplying to the new micro pubs. And
you just never know where these things end up, do you? Like,
indeed,
because of this little journey we've been on, I'm now doing this kind of stuff to be able to help people, not in my business, but just generally talk to them about having a bit of a better work-life balance or whatever.
I'm meeting a lady at 2 o'clock,
Yeah.
And she started working for herself about 4 to 5 months ago. I think I know she'd had a pretty good blue chip career. She's only probably late 30s, had some senior roles in business, and she's now become a leadership coach. Yeah. And she just wanted to pick my brain. And I guess when you work for yourself for 16 years, it's nothing like working for yourself. And it's an obvious thing to say. But when I was at the bank, okay, 250 people that worked for me, turnover £1 billion a year, but had a marketing department, had a direct sales team, had an HR team, had an admin team. It's when you start working, and of course I thought, leaving the bank with my background, cigar, slippers on, the business will flood in. How wrong was I? How wrong was, you have to get out there and speak to people like we've discussed and tell people what you do and understand what they need and put that need and requirement together. So it's a great learning curve. So if I can help people, as I'm meeting this lady at lunchtime, a little bit on that journey about where I personally think I went wrong or whatever, it's helping someone else, isn't it? And also, you then never know where mutual opportunities might come in.
And that's been an important lesson that I've learned from you, and I've not thanked you for it, is you just say yes to stuff. Like, when I wanted to just come and speak to you about my business at Costa Coffee in Stockport, you tipped up on a Saturday afternoon. There was no real immediate thing for you, no reason you should speak to me. I wasn't coming at you with a training contract. So you're like, yeah,
but I mean, I'm a great believer in karma, and I just think that, I guess because my business is all about people performance solutions and helping people, it goes with your own kind of psyche. You just do it, don't you, Rob? Yeah. You just do it. So, I mean, for example, Friday and Saturday, obviously I'm very involved with England athletics. Cheshire was one of only 2 counties this year because of COVID that staged the county cross-country championship. So Cheshire's county cross-country champs were on Saturday. Well, on Friday, I was at helping to set up the course with a load of other people. I was officiating all day on the Saturday. What did that cost me? Well, I had to do 4 trips to near Crewe without getting paid for my petrol. Don't get a penny for that, but it's something I enjoy doing, Rob. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I guess that goes back to lifestyle and having my own business. That means that I can say, okay, I'm happy to do those 2 days because I enjoy it. What will I do instead? Well, actually, I'll just work a bit later a couple of times in the month to catch up on some admin jobs. So it gives the beauty of self-employment. Once you've got going, it gives you lifestyle choices about when you work, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Did you know, I've just heard about a company called Revolut. It's a new financial services company.
Right.
They're global, and they are offering all employees the chance to work around the world for 2 months of the year. So if you've got an aunt in New Zealand, you could go and work in New Zealand for 2 months for Revolut as part of your job. They're being that flexible.
A few years ago, it was kind of, this, the sort of slide down from the first floor to the second floor and for Heater Fridays and stuff. And now these businesses are genuinely just going, look, just crack on, mate. You would not be in this role if we didn't think you were capable of doing it.
Absolutely.
We went away. We hired a static caravan in North Yorkshire last week, and the clear agreement between me and my wife was, yes, let's go away for the week with the kids, because we've not been on holiday, that you'll see, if you're watching this on YouTube, you see I've not yet had my
I'm booked in a week on Monday. I haven't got it on today. I don't wear it in the house, but when I go out, I wear a cap these days to give myself a degree of respectability.
But you know what? I can take things over from a caravan. I don't have to be either on or off. It's not binary anymore.
Absolutely. The interesting thing is JCB, a business I do some work with, have a contract with JCB, and they, as part of working from home, when they have Zoom calls, they don't encourage people to use the video part of it, just the audio part. So it becomes almost like the old-fashioned conference call, right? Because they don't think it's fair for other people to see inside your house. Your house is privacy. Yeah, you're working from home, but we don't expect, John from accounts to see Chris's kitchen table. Yeah. So they only do it audio. And that's quite an interesting concept about the privacy working from home.
Well, I think another conversation for another time is the Clubhouse app, isn't it? Which is an audio only networking app where you can pick a topic and you'll get an invite to a room. I haven't used it as much recently, but I found that rather than going onto a call or a course or having to watch something, I can walk around the house and make the baby a bottle whilst contributing onto a business. And audio, I think, is better than video in that respect, because you can be getting on with other stuff. And I think I listened to some, most people know the guy, Gary Vaynerchuk over in America, really talking about audio is the next way of shopping things. So you'll just be going, Alexa, buy me a lawnmower, and one will turn up. And unless you can say, Alexa, book me a course with Nick Bishop, you need to be known. So it will be, look, talking to me. You would have bought it. What are the best personal development people to speak to? You need them to be able to ask for you by name, because in 5 years' time, they'll just be ordering it for you. Right, I want to wrap up. I know we've been on for 30 minutes or so, Nick. So obviously I'm attempting to speak to people about the various ways you can structure a balanced lifestyle. So I've got 7 dead quick fire questions. Don't want anything in depth, just a little quick response to a top tip or goal in the following areas, such as, Nick, your fitness, how do you keep active or motivated to stay active?
It's got to be a mindset. It's got to be something you passionately want to do and believe in. So you set a goal for yourself that you can visualize and picture, see what the success will be like, because without goals, we have no motivation. So you've got to have that goal, have that picture of what success will be like, play it in your own mind and go out there and do it. Okay,
fine. Finance. So a little tip for how you do not fritter away, or how?
Well, I think COVID has shown that, hasn't it? That we don't need that much money. I read an article about how much money people were spending going to Costa Coffee and buying a cake, £6 a day. And they suddenly realized when they stopped, they're saving 40 quid a week. So write down the small things that they're not small things, the things that add up that you buy every day, you probably don't need.
Yeah, little budget. So work, the field that you work in, how do you get to love what you do?
Well, the beauty of self-employment is if you don't love what you do, don't do it. And I've always been fascinated by people and why people do things and why they do things in a certain way and what drives them and motivates them. And it's a pleasure for me just to be able to be part of that journey now.
Okay, fine. And family life, how do you wind down within the house if you've been at home? How do you sort of?
I think this is the important part. If you work from home, as you mentioned a few moments ago, that you spend an hour and a half a day commuting or 2 hours a day commuting, use that time that you're not commuting wisely. Go out for a walk, get some fresh air, have some proper downtime, because you've saved yourself 2 hours a day. So don't be a slave to the office.
Okay, fantastic. Your belief systems, Nick, why are you here? Why are you on planet Earth?
I just want to make a difference to people too. I wrote a book called My Best Version of Me, and I say the same to other people. How can I help your business and your team to be your best version of you?
Fantastic. How do you chill out with your mates?
I enjoy a beer early doors. I'm a bit like most men. I've got hundreds of people I know, without having 5 close mates.
Yes.
So, and because of the sports I'm involved in, particularly athletics these days, I coach 3 times a week, perhaps, out at events. I speak at conferences where I'm invited to by them. So I just love having people around me, particularly in the sports field. When I say field, I mean literally a sports arena rather than just a field.
Yeah. Okay. And finally, one thing you can't wait to enjoy doing once we're fully out of lockdown.
Okay. I've been invited out to Kenya to work with some elite Kenyan athletes. They're currently 13-minute 5K runners. They're going to be 12-minute 5K runners, 27-minute 10K runners, going to be 26, to give them 2 talks on peak performance, live with them for a week. It's been postponed because of COVID. It was due in August. Can't wait for that to be rebooked.
What was that 5K time?
They're 13-minute 5K runners at the moment, but they will be 12 minutes by the time they reach the Olympic Games in Paris in 3 years' time. They're speedy.
That's good going. Yeah.
They're brisk.
Fine.
They'll beat you and me to the pub and back.
Bloody hell. Right. Okay. Nick, that's been a pleasure. As always, I know you'll probably be on my little Friday morning meets at 9.
I will indeed this week. Last week, I was getting the course set up for the county championships. The week before, I was on the police speed awareness course. How bad is that, Rob?
So even
online it was as well. Of course, online it was.
Even elite coaches get caught speeding in a lockdown.
Sadly so.
But thanks very much for your time, Nick.
Absolute pleasure, Rob.
For the people that are listening, please just give a quick subscribe or like, depending on where you're seeing or listening to this, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you, Rob.
Cheers, Nick.